Hello and welcome to Short Stories. I'm your host, Martin. Today I will read a segment of one of the greatest poems of classical literature, the Odyssey. The Odyssey is an epic poem that was probably written by the ancient Greek author Homer sometime in the 8th century BC. It tells the story of the hero Odysseus and his 10-year journey home after the Trojan War. Several themes are explored in this poem: homesickness, hospitality, hubris, and temptation. If you want to read this poem for yourself, you can go to Gutenberg.org. I will be reading from Part 9, which takes place on the island of the Cyclops. I have made some minor changes to make the story shorter and easier to understand. Vocabulary: cunning, cunning. He solved the problem with a cunning plan. Ewe, ewe. The ewes gave birth in the spring. Hospitality, hospitality. The southern U.S. is famous for its food and hospitality. Slumber, slumber. The dog slumbered on a rug near the door. Oblige, oblige. We asked him for a glass of water, and he obliged. Flail about, flail about. The frightened monkey flailed about wildly. Jeer, jeer. The crowd jeered at the opposing team. Follow someone's lead, follow someone's lead. If you don't know how to dance, just follow my lead. The story. Firstly, I will tell you my name so that you may know it, and maybe one day, if I survive, you can be my guest. I am Odysseus, son of Laertes. I am famous for my cunning, you might have heard. I come from Ithaca, a rugged island that breeds brave men. I was a captive of the goddess Calypso, who wished me to marry her, but I refused. Although she offered me all the luxuries of the world, I refused because there is nothing dearer to a man than his own country and his parents. I will tell you about the many hazardous adventures which I met with on my return from Troy. After leaving Troy by sea, we encountered a terrible storm. It blew us off course, and we were lost for about 10 days. We spotted an island and beached our ships on the shore. The island was covered in sheep and goats, so we greedily ate as many as we could get our hands on. I decided to see what else could be had on this island. I took 12 of my best men to explore. We found the cave of a huge Cyclops. Fortunately, he was out shepherding, so we decided to go inside and take what we wanted. We found loads of cheese, milk, and wine, as well as numerous lambs. How could 12 hungry men resist? We ate some of the cheese and opened a bottle of wine. We were careless and didn't hear the Cyclops coming until it was too late. When the giant, one-eyed monster entered the cave, we hid ourselves. The Cyclops pushed a large rock in front of the cave entrance and began milking his ewes. We watched silently from the back of the cave, wondering how we were going to get out. We were discovered when the giant lit a great fire to cook his dinner. He said, "Who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you in my house?" I was frightened by his loud voice and monstrous form, but I managed to reply, "We are Greeks on our way home from Troy. We got lost in a storm, and we are desperate for food and shelter. Would you be so kind as to show us some hospitality?" The giant was silent for some time, so I added, "Remember, Zeus is the protector of all travelers. You wouldn't want to displease him, would you?" The Cyclops grunted and said, "Stranger, you are a fool, or else you know nothing about Cyclopes. We have no regard for Zeus or any of your puny gods." He then reached out his massive hand and grabbed two of my men. We watched in horror as he bashed their heads against the cave wall and ate them. After his gruesome meal was done, the giant drank a huge flask of wine and fell asleep. While the Cyclops slumbered, my men and I discussed what to do. We couldn't just kill the Cyclops because we needed him to open the door for us. Fortunately, I came up with a cunning plan. The next morning, after the Cyclops left to tend to his flock, we found the giant's staff resting in the corner. We cut off part of it with some tools we found and began filing one end of it to a point. I then charred the point in the fire in order to harden it. After that, we anxiously waited for the giant to return. The Cyclops entered the cave at the expected time and went about his usual routine of milking his ewes. When he was finished, I offered him a special gift, a huge bowl of my own special wine, which I had brought with me. "Look here, Cyclops," I said. "You must be very thirsty from eating human flesh. Try some of this wine, which I brought as a gift for you." The Cyclops hesitated for a second before taking the bowl. He drank it in one gulp and said, "This is far better than the wine we Cyclopes make. Could I have some more?" I happily obliged him, knowing that Greek wine was much stronger than the Cyclops' wine. He drank some more, smiled, and said, "Tell me your name, and I'll give you a gift in return." I told him, "My name is Nobody." The Cyclops hiccuped and responded, "Then I shall eat you last, Nobody. That is my gift to you." It didn't take long for the wine to go to his head, and he fell fast asleep. It was now time for the last part of my plan, which was the most dangerous. We had to drive this massive spike into the monster's eye. It took 5 of us to lift the weapon from its hiding place. I heated up the tip in the fire one last time before we bore it into his one huge eye. The monster screamed and flailed about. We successfully avoided his blind, violent blows. His cries of pain and rage attracted the attention of other Cyclopes in the neighborhood. They arrived moments later and knocked on the door. "Polyphemus," said one, "what happened?" The giant, still drunk and slurring his speech, replied, "I have been blinded." "Who did this to you?" inquired the other Cyclops. Polyphemus groaned and said, "Nobody did this to me." The first Cyclops scoffed and said to his friend, "Polyphemus is drunk again." The 2 Cyclopes then walked away, shaking their heads. Our Cyclops, Polyphemus, was now in a real rage and was determined to catch us. So he opened the door to the cave and sat in the entrance with his huge hands outstretched. "How will we escape now?" asked one of my men. I quickly came up with a solution. I found some fleece lying in a pile and covered myself with it. I then crawled amongst the sheep in the cave. When dawn arrived, the sheep, as was their habit, left the cave to feed on the grass outside. I passed right under the giant's fingers. My men followed my lead, and we all escaped. We ran all the way to our ships. I commanded the crew to depart as soon as possible, so they went aboard, took their places, and smote the gray sea with their oars. We left just in time, as the Cyclops had heard our footsteps and had followed us to the beach. I saw him standing on the shore, cursing at us. I jeered at him and said, "Cyclops, you should have known better than to treat your guests so terribly. What goes around comes around." He became even more furious and picked up a huge boulder and flung it at us. It very nearly hit us. I then did something very stupid. Against the advice of my comrades, I began taunting the giant again and said, "Cyclops, if anyone asks you who it was that put your eye out and spoiled your good looks, tell them it was Odysseus of Ithaca." The Cyclops then lifted his hands in prayer and cursed me. "May Odysseus return home in another man's ship and find trouble in his house." Sadly, these words would haunt me for the next 10 years. Questions. Number 1. What did Odysseus find in the cave? A. Baby sheep. B. Cheese. C. A cyclops. D. Both A and B. The answer is D. He found baby sheep and cheese. Question 2. Who blinded the Cyclops? A. Zeus. B. Odysseus. C. Polyphemus. D. Both A and B. The answer is B. Odysseus blinded the Cyclops. Question 3. What stupid thing did Odysseus do at the end? A. He stole some more cheese. B. He left his wallet in the cave. C. He bought some crypto. D. He taunted the Cyclops a second time. The answer is D. He taunted the Cyclops a second time. Question 4. What was the theme of this story? A. Animal husbandry. B. The laws of nature. C. The laws of hospitality. D. Politics. The answer is C. The laws of hospitality.